All right, welcome back everyone to the Locker Room Podcast with Lach and Raph, your hosts. And as always, we're on a mission to dramatically improve the health and fitness of Australia's business executives and leaders, which is why today we're going to start with talking about how weight loss really works. And I like this because there is so much mythology around weight loss, and I just feel like it needs an episode to really kick off this podcast to talk about, what is true, what isn't true, what are some of the myths out there. What does the science say? What does the research say? There's so much research out there at this point. Like, we're pretty hard on the facts. I don't think it's going to change much. So we're going to be talking about, is it as simple as calories in versus calories out? What are going to be some of the best exercises to do when it comes to weight loss? And also, what food should we eat? What should we not eat? How does this all tie together? Obviously, when we're talking about weight loss here, we're talking about fat loss. Like, we don't want to lose muscle. We don't want to lose bone. We don't want to lose other tissues. We just want to lose fat. So that's what we're going to get into. So let's start with calories in versus calories out. Is it really that simple? So there's a law of the human body. It's called the law of thermodynamics, which basically, I don't want to get too into it, but basically all it means is every single body on the human planet obeys this law, which is the calories in versus calories out law, which is to say, if you put more calories in than you expend, you will gain weight. If you burn more calories than you consume, you will lose weight. And then if you kind of do the same, if your output and your input is similar, then you maintain. And pretty much every single human body on the entire planet, bar some extreme medical reasons, which we'll get into, follows this. So you don't have some special like, oh, my body's different, or I don't obey these laws, or it doesn't work for me, or whatever. I promise you, it works for everyone.
And I think one specific area that can get confusing is it's not less food than you're burning. Because often people are like, oh man, I'm eating more food than I ever was before, but now it's healthy food and I'm losing weight. But the calories can still be less. So you may be consuming less calories, which is causing the weight loss. Doesn't have to be like less food. It's the calories that are in the food.
Yeah, and as we'll go through this podcast in future weeks, like we'll talk about how different foods have more energy than others, even though they're smaller, and food volume, and there's so many things that tie into it. But we're staying high level today. Now, small caveat that will affect someone's ability to lose weight or gain weight is there are some medical conditions. Basically, the two main ones are like a thyroid condition, right? Because your thyroid basically dictates your energy levels. If you have a underactive thyroid, it's going to lower your energy output, right? It's a medical condition, which basically just makes it really hard for you to lose weight because you feel tired all the time, but you're still obeying the laws of thermodynamics. You still are moving less, and that is what's causing the weight gain. Or you have an overactive thyroid, which is causing your body to burn too much energy, and that's why you're losing heaps of weight, but it's still obeying those laws. Obviously, the condition needs medical attention so that you can kind of equalize and not be too out of sync. And now the other condition would be low testosterone. If you have chronically low testosterone, which could be hypogonadism, which is a genetic condition, or it could be just you have really low testosterone from lifestyle, from like too much alcohol, from not enough sleep, from high stress, from no training, for just being unhealthy. This obviously makes it harder as well to lose weight. It just makes it harder to build muscle, makes it harder to lose fat, makes it harder to get stronger and recover. So both medical conditions can be addressed. Ultimately, they still obey the laws of thermodynamics. It's not an excuse to not get in the gym and train and be healthy. So putting all that aside, let's go into a little bit more, breaking down how weight loss works. And this is definitely, if you one of our clients listening to this, you've maybe been coached on, very likely been coached on this, you probably remember it. But basically, let's start with calories out. So calories out is broken down into a few things. So how your body burns, say like 3,000 calories in a day that it burns. How is that broken down? So roughly 70%, these are rough numbers here, but 70% is your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, which means if you didn't get out of bed, right, what is just the bare minimum energy that's required for everything to keep working, right? And that's 70% of that 3,000 calories.
So 2,100 calories.
There you go. So 2,100 calories.
We've got 900 to go.
Literally just to get the lights on, to switch on the lights and turn on the engine. That's it. Before you even, that's it. Urination, breath, no steps, nothing. That's just the base of what it takes to run the machine. The next 15 or so % is your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that is all the stuff that you do that is not considered exercise, which is considered movement. So if you go for a 20-minute walk, that's not NEAT. That's not your NEAT, right? It's like the twitching, it's the bouncing, it's talking, it's moving. Everyone's NEAT is a little bit different, just depending on their type of personality, which can affect weight loss. But ultimately, yeah, there's a lot of things that, like 15% is quite a lot, right? Yep. 15%, it's a lot of calories. If you're trying to lose weight and you have a 10% deficit, the difference between your NEAT being active and underactive can sometimes really affect that weight loss. But significant portion of calories out going to just like your everyday movements that are completely subconscious. You're not consciously doing them. Then after that, you've got roughly around 10% is the thermic effect of food. So when you consume food, it actually requires energy to break that food down, right? So if the food is, whole foods, if it's, full of fiber, if it's not cooked as thoroughly and it's not very processed, it takes more energy for your body to break down. The most extreme version of this is like what we call the meat sweats, right? You eat a lot of meat, all of a sudden you start sweating. It's because your body is working so hard, your digestive system is working so hard to break that down. So all that energy that you consume in a day, that requires energy to break down as well. And there are certain foods that you can eat that can obviously increase that versus foods that would lower that. Again, we're not going to get into that today. And then the last kind of 5% is your exercise, right? Which, if you really think about it, for most people, that's the thing you think about the most, but can make the smallest difference, that 5%. So that's going to be your calories out. So it's going to be your BMR, right? What it takes to turn the lights on, your NEATs, all your subconscious movement throughout the day, the energy it requires to just break down food and use food in the body, and then your exercise. So if you really think about it in the grand scheme of things, we kind of think about it the other way around. We're like, all right, exercise is going to make the biggest difference here. In some ways, it does make the smallest difference. Obviously, you can exercise a lot more if you're more of a Jackson. You want to go for a marathon training plus a high rocks training, plus bodybuilding plus whatever else he's got planned. That might make up more than 5%. But for most of us listening, for most executives that train 2 to 3 days a week, 5% is very likely going to be that output there. And then obviously calories in is just food and liquid. I don't know any other way you can get calories in unless you sunning. I think sunning the body. That's it. That's all it is. Okay, so that's your formula. Now, obviously, it's time to, like any good formula, manipulate it in favor. So there's a few things you can do, right? So if you want to gain weight, or if you want to maintain, or if you want to lose weight, you obviously need to adapt the formula. So losing weight, as most of us, we want to be in a 10 to 15% calorie deficit. So out of that 3,000 calories, roughly 300 to 400 calories deficit. So how you would create that deficit, you could add in a walk and you could reduce some food, right? Slightly increase the output, slightly decrease the input. That's just the basic maths, right? And that's what most people need to do. It's nothing more complicated than that. Obviously, the nuances of like what foods and what foods to take more of and take less of, and the composition of those foods, we'll get into that in other episodes. But ultimately, surface level, if you just like took out half a meal and you took some extra steps, you will start losing weight.
I think what's important is, because the more you change one of the sides, the more difficult it gets. It is really good to do both.
Yeah.
Really similar to saving money. It's like, yes, you could just spend less, or you could earn more. You could just do one of the two to save more. But most people find that doing both is really good.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to it's hard to just cut all your spending. And it's really hard to make unlimited amounts of money. But yeah, a bit of both is usually pretty achievable.
Absolutely. So that's kind of it from the high level side. Now, in terms of exercises, especially when it comes to what are the best exercises for fat loss. Firstly, when it comes to just the best exercise in general, you want a combination of weight training and cardio. That's going to be the ideal format. Now, weight training is designed primarily in this particular context to build and maintain muscle. And then when it comes to fat loss, really you want to just create more output, right? With the caveat of you don't want to make it more difficult from the dietary perspective. So what I mean by that is, when you train weights and you lift weights, you're doing a great thing for many reasons. Getting strong, getting denser bones, you're building muscle, which is going to be great for your body composition. And now, is it necessarily like targeted fat loss? No, that's not the primary goal. It is increasing your output slightly, but you want to start adding in some cardio to increase your output, to swing the formula, I should say, in your favor. With well, the way I look at it is when it comes to fat loss, you actually want to do the cardio that doesn't affect your hunger the most. So when you do really, really hard conditioning, it does tend to make you more hungry. It does make fat loss a little bit more difficult. So I would say like don't train cardio too intensely or make it a shorter session. Now, if you need to get fit, it's kind of a different story. But steps are really good because steps don't increase your hunger really, but they increase your output. So it's a really good way to like increase your recovery, still increase your output, and doesn't make dieting more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, and one other thing that makes it more difficult is that intense exercise just creates a lot of fatigue.
Yes.
You know, a lot of clients come in, it's like intense training is hard. Like you get injuries and like you're super sore the next day. You're like, I didn't want to do that tomorrow. And like, yeah, dieting's hard enough. Whereas, you know, your steps, you may not get exactly the same fitness benefit from it, but there's like no fatigue buildup. Like you feel better after a walk, right? You can walk every single day. Like I could do this forever. That's great. And you're still getting the calorie burn.
Yeah, well, a lot of people just lose weight by walking.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that start their journey with like, hey, I just was doing no steps. I started, doubled my steps and I started losing weight. You know, it's probably not the end of the journey, but it's definitely a good start.
You know, a good formula I like, and this is obviously going to vary a lot between people, but something around it's 40 calories per 1,000 steps.
Okay.
40 calories. So, you add in an extra 5,000 steps. Yeah, it's like an extra 200 calories.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like loads. Like I know you can eat that pretty quickly, but you might be trying to get a 300-400 calorie deficit. That's half of it right there.
Yeah.
From an extra nearly hour of walking.
And steps are just such an easy thing to build into your lifestyle as well, right?
It actually gets you places.
Yeah. Well, that's how we used to get around. Now it's electric scooters and electric bikes and Ubers, and we do have legs for stepping. Okay, and then last thing is like, okay, what are the best foods for fat loss? Again, we're going high level here. We'll go into future episodes with more detail, but high level foods that have high volume, low calories, right? So that's generally going to be your whole foods, right? Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, meats. Every time you process a food, you make it more calorie dense, right? You make it smaller, which means it's taking up less room in your stomach, which, you could eat a Mars bar, right? It has whatever 400 calories in it. So small, you eat it, you're like, I could eat a lot of these. It's like a bag of potatoes versus a boiled potato. You could eat maybe 2 boiled potatoes before you're like, man, I'm pretty full here. You could eat a whole bag of chips, maybe 2 whole bags of chips. How many potatoes are in a bag of chips? Probably like 7, 8, 9, 10 potatoes.
I don't know, but there's also a lot of calories from the fat and the oil.
A lot. So yeah, if you're generally the best foods to eat are going to be minimally processed whole foods. It's just going to make dieting easier because it's just going to make you feel fuller for longer, and you're going to get less calories in overall. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's the science of losing weight. We want to keep it really simple, really high level for you. That's how it works. Everything else is just noise, right? Everything else is just methods and keto this and vegan that, and they all end up obeying the same laws, right? So as long as you follow these principles when it comes to weight loss or weight gain, you can never go wrong with any diet that you plug into it. So hopefully that was helpful. As always, we really appreciate your attention. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll speak to you all next week. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If you want to get the information in this episode and more, you can download the 30-day health optimization blueprint, which is all the tools and tactics that we use with our clients every day for 30 days. We'll deliver you an email in your inbox. Just head to lockerroomgym.com/blueprint to get the emails. That's lockerroomgym.com/blueprint.